Hey everyone, Sebastian here, and I wanted to make a video to talk about the fact that I'm going to vote abstain for the Cardano Constitution. And I'm going to talk about what that means and especially why I think this is actually the best thing for the protocol and for decentralization. So if you don't know, abstain is an explicit vote you make on chain. So this is not like me sitting back and doing nothing. I'm explicitly voting abstain. And the reason why is because it's not lost to me that the reason I'm one of the top D-reps, one of the top delegates for Cardano governance, is because a lot of people trust in my technical knowledge and my knowledge of the protocol, the history of the protocol, and the history of the project, given my long involvement across many different projects. And so a lot of people have voted for me for my technical expertise, not necessarily for my opinions on more social matters, such as the Constitution. And there's been a lot of people that have spent a massive amount of time on this Constitution, both for talking about the reasons why they like it, and both against and talking about the reasons why they don't like it. And I really respect a lot of people that put a massive amount of work. So oftentimes, these people flew to different countries, to different meetings, and had many long conversations about different points in the Constitution. And while all that was happening, I'm mostly focused on the tech side of things, building cool things like Starstream, which is this new ZK VM we're building, and stuff like Pime Engine to allow multi-chain interop and all these other efforts that we are working on. And so I want to respect the people who made the decisions and say, okay, I'm going to kind of try and stay in my camp and vote primarily on technical issues and kind of let the people who want to focus more on the social issues focus on those. That might seem like a bit of a strange statement because if you're used to regular governance, like, voting for your representative in the US or in Europe, you're used to that when you vote for somebody, they have the power to vote on your behalf for every issue, be it economic issues, be it social issues, be it something else. They vote for you. So you may have voted for that candidate just because of their stance on economic policy, but they also end up representing you for every policy, which is not necessarily ideal, but that's the way governance tend to work. And this is not as bad as it might sound because in a legislative body, you typically have many representatives from many different districts, and there tends to be a certain balancing out of social issues, such that overall, across all the different people, it more or less represents the feeling of the people in the country. Now, of course, you can debate about, how well does democracy actually represent the will of the people, but there's like some sense that it's not usually too far out. And so we don't actually quite get the same thing in on-chain voting because of the fact that it's not one person, one vote, rather it's one ADA, one vote. And so things get skewed a bit differently. And so, for example, you get situations where a lot of people were voting for me for an explicit reason, but now I end up with a lot of voting power for potentially different reasons. Now, that's not to say I'll never vote on non-technical issues. Of course, I still have thoughts on these other issues as well, and there might be cases where I think it is in the best interest of the protocol to vote a specific way, especially given my involvement in the project for so many years. Of course, I know a lot of things beyond just the technical side of things. But I think this is an important vote for the first vote. Remember, this Cardano Constitution vote is the first main vote, and I want to try and help set a precedent that people don't have to vote for every single issue. You can choose to be a D-rep and vote on the areas you're confident with and abstain on the issues you're not confident with. And I think this is an important precedent to send because currently we live in an age where everybody's expected to have an opinion on every topic, especially when it comes to social topics, which tend to have kind of an easier basis for making a decision, even if making an informed decision is not so hard. Some examples of this are, for example, like racial justice is, I think, the term people use these days. I'm sure race relationships in every country is a very complex topic, and trying to figure out how to best manage this for the best success of everybody in the country probably is not trivial to figure out. But at its core, a lot of people that vote on these issues simplify it down to like, am I racist? Yes, no, well, therefore I voted this way. And so it becomes a very reductive thing, and they didn't really spend time to figure out on this specific policy, was that really the right move for the government? And that's not limited to just social issues. You also see this in technical issues as well. So, for example, sometimes you'll see a bill come to government to say, okay, we should defund some specific research project. And instead of having to debate about the merits or demerits of that specific science venture, which a lot of people don't have the technical knowledge to really be able to decide, it tends to boil down to just, I think science is good, therefore I think defunding science is bad, therefore I'm against this bill, right? So people often, because they lack the social expertise, but have to vote something, tend to just fall back to these very reductive arguments. And another example of this is that oftentimes when you present people 3 options, should we do this, should we not do this, or do you think we need more studies almost always wins, because it gives people an out. They're like, well, I don't know enough about the topic to say we should do it, but I also don't know enough about the topic to say we don't do it. And doing more studies, well, that can never hurt, right? So it's the safest option. So I'll just go on that one. So you see a lot of issues where they're just permanently in studies, and you have study after study after study after study. And it doesn't really matter what these studies say, because nobody's reading the studies. They're just using this as kind of like a cop-out. And so, given all this, I think we can have a better solution with Cardano by having DREPs kind of be normalize the ability to choose abstain, to say it's okay to not have an opinion on everything. It's okay to not block everything on require more studies. It's okay to just say, hey, I have my areas of expertise. This is not necessarily one of them, and therefore I'm going to abstain, and have people be okay with that. And the reason I think this is an important precedent, beyond the fact that this is, I think maybe it ends up with better results, is I think it's a key step to avoiding basically an oligarchy. How do oligarchies form? They form when you have a small set of people that exert their will on every single subject. No matter what it is, you have to convince this specific set of key people to vote on your position, otherwise it will not pass, right? I think part of the reasons these oligarchies form, other than market dynamics, is also this expectation that they will vote on everything, and therefore you have to reach out to this person because they will vote against you if you don't convince them of your side. And then one way we can avoid these oligarchies is by saying, hey, you may have had a lot of ADA delegated your way, but remember that this ADA is delegated to you for a specific purpose, and you don't have to vote your opinion for everything. And that ends up spreading kind of the vote around more to different people, and different people can come up and have their voices matter for different topics where they're more of a subject expert, as opposed to having a small set of oligarchs that are expected to be an expert on every single subject. So that's kind of covering all the key points I wanted to go over. Now, of course, one of the things that I'm aware of is that this might be a controversial opinion. I'm sure there's a lot of people who feel very passionate about the Constitution and how it is, and think everybody should vote for the Constitution. And I can understand that, because the Constitution obviously had a lot of work, massive amount of effort for so many people to go into it. But I'd like to just say, think about the bigger picture, which is that the Constitution is not just the first and only vote, it's the first of many votes, and therefore I think it's nice to spend this symbolic first vote to try and set a precedent. But also, if you're watching this video and you delegate it to me, but you don't agree with my opinion and you want to vote for somebody who has a different opinion, different stance, who maybe will vote on every single issue, you're free to change your vote. And then that's kind of the point of this video, right? A lot of people have delegated to me as kind of a default because they know me. But also I want to, let people know that I'm not necessarily your guy for every single thing. You might have voted for me just out of this fact of you've seen me over the years and you just knew me, so this was a safe pick. But I'll also encourage you to look around. There's a lot of really great people in the ecosystem who have been working hard in different topics, and their opinions and their thoughts deserve some consideration as well. So all that to recap, to say that I think this is the best thing for the protocol. Hopefully with this video and this extra context, you will agree with me. But I look forward to any thoughts that you have on this topic and about abstaining and governance in general on Twitter or on YouTube or whatever other platform you prefer to reach out to me on. So thanks for your time.